Hey, it's great though. If you catch me, then that means that we don't have like a listener in their car on the way to work or something yelling at us, right? Or maybe they did, but you already corrected it, so I think we're good there.
Like a Jim Wood PMP, like
Yes,
that
that's
kind of
that's that's my that's my signature move when I listen to other podcasts. So
That's funny.
welcome to My Gotta Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Wood. In today's episode, my co-host John Powell and I will preview this week's matchup between the 3rd-ranked Georgia Bulldogs and the 14th-ranked Volunteers from Tennessee. We'll tell you what stood out from Kirby's press conference, how each team's offense matches up against the other's defense, answer some listener questions, and we'll give our final score predictions. If you'd like to have a question featured on My Gotta Podcast, be sure to follow our social media at My Gotta Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Finally, we'd love it if you'd subscribe to our show on Apple Podcasts or whichever service you prefer. Now, let's dive right in. Just first thing, I did want to say thanks to all of our listeners. But we've just heard from so many people. It's been really cool. Both friends, family, and then also folks that we don't know in real life. So that's been really awesome. So just thanks to everyone who's listening. We appreciate it. And did just want to give a special thanks to Dog Stats and Nathan Lawrence, who both reached out pretty much unsolicited, other than us mentioning them nonstop. But they both reached out, which was really cool. So thanks, guys, for the feedback. It's much appreciated.
Yes.
So with that, it is Tennessee week. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the name of the podcast does come from the 1980 call against Tennessee when Herschel Walker ran over Bill Bates when he said, "My God, a freshman." And thus we have My God, a podcast. So, John, I'm going to play that here we'll see if you can hear it.
Oh, please do.
I'll make it sound better when I throw it into the when I edit all of this. But let's see if you can hear this.
Anything, you could literally play anything, and it would be better than Rocky Top.
We hand it off to Herschel. There's a hole. 5, 10, 12. He's running over people. Oh, you Herschel Walker. My God almighty, he ran right through 2 men. Herschel ran right over 2 men. They had him dead away inside the 9. Herschel Walker went 16 yards. He drove right over Orange Church, just driving and running with those big 5s. My God, a freshman.
Oh, man. Miss Munson.
Love Munson. And you know what? One other thing I will add is I actually did get word back to me that there is a member of the Munson family who has been made aware of the podcast's existence, and she said that she loves the name and loves our logo. So,
that's pretty awesome.
So that was 40 years ago, and which is, that's where that, the 40th anniversary red pants, all that came from, right? It was commemorating that season. So,
that's right.
So that was game 1 that year, obviously, and here we are 40 years later. We've got Tennessee in game 3, which I guess is these days is a bit closer to normal than game 1, right?
Yeah, exactly. No cupcakes to start the season back then.
Right, exactly. So I had a couple of things, I guess just diving in, right, that I wanted to go. I had from some notes from Kirby's press conference.
Okay.
If that's cool. So one thing he talked about, James Cook is day-to-day. We talked about hopefully he would be okay. He did say again that he could have gone back in against Auburn if he needed to. They keep talking about his arm, that it's his arm. I
thought it was his shoulder.
Right. But I feel like his pinky was facing in the wrong direction after he gave a stiff arm on that play that he came out on. So, and Kevin Butler actually mentioned that on Bulldog Brunch that his finger was not right. So I don't know. Maybe that's not as big of a concern, and there was something else going on too. But so hopefully he's okay. And then the other thing that he called out was on the special teams. So I know we both read Seth Emerson's special teams article, which I thought was excellent. So if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, you should. And Seth is great. But so here was a great quote from Kirby that I believe was in the article as well. "I wouldn't jump on the bandwagon that we've dominated special teams. I think there were a lot of plays we left out there." So again, It's the smart mentality, the way he got everything.
Mr. Perfectionist at work
Right.
again. Yeah.
Right. So we're drooling over it. But that's Kirby's thoughts on it. So
it was nice. It was nice to see them get some good press. We had been talking about it on the podcast about the Cochran love, and so it's nice to see the numbers, presented in such a way that articulates that, they're having good success on punts, they're having good success on kickoffs, and then most importantly on the punt return team, seeing the blocks and things like that. They just seem like they're playing with a lot of energy, and they've got a lot of talent that has a desire to be out there. And I think that was something that Kirby was wanting and urging the underclassmen to kind of get on board with some of that. Because very clearly the seniors and the juniors and, the upperclassmen have taken root, because you saw Zeus, get a block, and everybody thought it was Tyson Campbell. They thought it was someone different. It was Zeus.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Getting to see those guys want to contribute on special teams. That's it just shows great leadership, right? And showing the great example for the younger guys. And, for those younger guys that maybe aren't on the field yet, it's a way for them to get on there. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So the more they go all out and show for there. And I think a great example we've already seen, and I think this was in Seth Emerson's article as well, is Kenny McIntosh, right? Like, he's been doing so well in the return game. I mean, you have to imagine that's contributing to the carries that he's getting in the backfield as well.
Yeah, you do well in all facets that you're asked to do, and you will get an opportunity at some point, and you can just ask the mailman for that.
So true. You want to talk some mailman? Because I have something on the mailman.
I do. Let's talk about the mailman.
So one of the things that we've talked about, right after Arkansas, we talked about, I was asking, why didn't Mathis get the support that mailman got, right? Like, there seemed to be more penalties and such. And so I, questioned, was it Bennett's command of the huddle? Did he settle people down and such? But there's been some quotes that keep coming out from players, right? And we saw, like, in the post game, right, with Adam Anderson, mailman, like, they seem to love him. So is that, maybe they just, like, why do they love playing for him so much? I think a lot of it is because they know him, right? Like, and you've seen LeCount. So I saw a quote from LeCount where he said, "We grew up playing football against each other. I've seen him sling it a lot. I'm a big fan of his." They knew each other. We've seen the text message thread between him and Malik Herring, right, when they were in high school. And ultimately, the other thing that I don't think you can discount is, he's from Georgia, right? Most of these guys are from Georgia. He's from Georgia. I always wondered if that had something to do with the way the team responded to Fromm as opposed to Eason. And maybe we're seeing a bit of that with Bennett here as well.
Yeah, there is definitely something to say about those Georgia boys when they come through here, and I think that's something that Kirby Smart, made a point of it when he first came on board. Was they made it a priority to try to get as many of the big talents as they could from the state, and they locked it down for many years, and until the brand now is basically reaching far and wide for 5 stars all over the place. But they've never really given up on Georgia, and obviously never will, because the talent here in the state of Georgia is so great. And the college game here, or the high school game here, the high school game here is it has been ever increasing in priority. It's gotten big. So as people have transplanted here, I think that there's a lot of validity in some of that, especially when you've seen this kid play in high school. I think you mentioned, was the text message the one you were talking about with Holloman? Was that the one you were talking about?
Yes. Yeah, I said Malik Herring. Herring. You're right. It was Holloman. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
That messes up my story a little bit, but that's okay. Let's get the facts straight.
It's all good. I'm here for you, Jim. You can correct me from time to time too.
Awesome. Hey, it's great though. If you catch me, then that means that we don't have like a listener in their car on the way to work or something yelling at us, right? Or maybe they did, but you already corrected it, so I think we're good there.
Like Jim, like a Jim Wood PMP, like
Yes,
that kind of
that's my signature move when I listen to other podcasts. So,
that's funny.
so yeah, I think that was the main thing that I had there. Although the other thing is, I don't know. I guess we could kind of get it out of the way. Like there was a lot of Cade Mays questions in the press conference. So I had kind of jotted some things down I wanted to make sure we talked about. And the way I wrote it down was Cade Mays exclamation point, all the pinky finger talk.
Yes.
So
I can't put my finger on why there would be so many questions.
It's unbelievable, and I mean, really, you feel like the reason he left in the first place is because Kirby wouldn't pinky promise that he would always have a starting role. So,
right?
Who knows? But what I liked about what I saw in the press conference, and I'll just go to some players, just the way they're saying what they're responding to questions from the media, because generally the question is what's it gonna be like? This is the first time playing against him. Is there bad blood? That kind of stuff. And so Zamir White said, "We love Cade Mays at Georgia. We wish him nothing but the best, and we're happy for him." Blake Herring said it will be a good competition. It'll be like once again going on the practice field, right? Like just like they used to go against each other in practice. So I think that's the right answer for the players to take. Kirby Smart also was talking about that he didn't have any inkling that Cade was going to leave, right? Like leading up to the Sugar Bowl last year, et cetera. So I don't know. Just kind of take the high road. Don't really answer the questions. It's kind of the way to go,
I like to chalk that all up to Kirby Smart basically not wanting to give anyone any kind of locker room material to paste up. I imagine that he sat those kids down and said, "Listen, you're going to get asked these questions. I know that they're going to ask you about this guy. I want you to be nothing but positive and give them no fodder for them to feast over."
Right.
But I can guarantee you that he has been in their ear about some of that stuff because they have. I promise you, those guys are going to be out for blood on the betrayal that they likely feel, and he will be giving them an edge to go after it.
Yes, absolutely, and I'm sure things will be said on the field on Saturday amongst each other.
Exactly.
There's no telling the trash talk that will happen with those guys. I would imagine. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like it is the. I guess the only other thing I'll say about that is, I mean, Tennessee had a good offensive line coming back, and the way Kirby put it was, that they had 4 starters coming back, and now you had in Cade Mays, so they basically had 5 starters returning. I mean, and I think they do have a good line, and I mean he was a starter at Georgia, right? I mean, we all liked him when he was here. So all jokes aside, like he's a good player. So I think our defense will be up to the task, though. Against him.
I was just about to say, the defense is probably going to rule that roost. I don't know what direction we're going to go in. I know we're going to talk about the defense at some point, or at least I am in the free time.
we love the Georgia defense.
Yes, in the defense we trust.
I guess. Well, so I think we actually kind of already went into the special teams a little bit. Do you want to go, or we could just talk that matchup? You want to talk Tennessee offense, Georgia defense matchup, or we can just kind of run through? I know you watched a bit. You've watched some Tennessee game tape.
Yeah, I watched some of it. What I saw was, when they played Missouri, they appeared to have a pretty good day against Missouri, and obviously did from a statistics standpoint and from a win-loss scenario. But the biggest thing that I saw was that they've been able to rack up a lot of rushing yards over these last several games, and I just don't see that continuing into this game, even with Mr. Cade Mays, even with the emergence of the running back, which the guy's name escapes me at this point, but he appears
Ty Chandler.
Is it Ty Chandler?
So they've got 2 backs So looking at it, Chandler has got 176 yards in the season, and Gray is the other guy.
Gray.
Eric Gray.
Aaron Gray is the guy that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Eric Gray.
Eric Gray, sorry.
Yeah. So he's got more touchdowns. So he's got 2 touchdowns. Chandler's got 1. Yeah.
Eric Gray is the guy that Gene Chizik on one of those Talking Heads shows said that everybody by the end of the season was gonna know his name.
Okay.
And the things that I saw was him slashing through the defensive line. He was into the secondary. The thing that I saw with Missouri and some of the other game tape was the missed tackles are not going to be present in this game. He's going to get stopped at the second level if he gets past the defensive line. I don't see him running. I don't see him dancing 80 yards down the field. I don't see him scoring too many rushing touchdowns, which brings me to another kind of big statistic, which we're going to talk about a number of stats, streaks, I guess, if you will, that are up for grabs here. But Georgia has not been scored. An SEC team has not rushed for a touchdown against Georgia since the SEC championship game in 2018, which is just absolutely mind-boggling when you think about that from the talent quality we have here.
That's that a running back hasn't scored a rushing
touchdown,
right?
Running back.
Because I think the only other one was Knicks last year, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yep.
So I just don't see the running backs having success against our defense. We've only gotten better since last year, and we shut them down pretty good last year. So if we can make them one dimensional, Jarrett Garantano, I know that he has shown flashes of good skill and things like that. We also saw flashes of good skill from Bo Nix early in the season too, but you saw what happened when he's literally running for his life. And that's kind of where I'm going with it, is if we can get the kind of pressure that we've put on these guys. The defense has the defense has caused a lot of unmeasurable havoc, and that they've gotten some sacks, they've gotten some interceptions, but 52 quarterback hurries for the Georgia defense to date against, I think it was 4 quarterback hurries that we've had from the opposing defenses.
Yes.
That just screams defensive line and offensive line dominance for this Georgia football team, and we've played better teams.
Yes, agree. And back to as we've talked of offensive transition, right? So going from Coley to Monken at Georgia, let's not forget Tennessee does have Jim Chaney as their offensive coordinator now. And he was there last year. So the only thing I would say, I guess maybe a bit like concern, around that would be that our offense definitely got a lot better from year 1 to year 2 under him, right? So 16 to 17 saw a huge improvement. However, as we've talked about, we also had Nick Chubb and Sony Michel, right? And then, bring Fromm in, the receiving core. That team was just so loaded. And I guess my kind of gripe with Chaney was he wasn't super creative. He had his plays, and they're solid plays, schematically. But he would kind of rely on out-talenting the other team, is what I felt like, right? Like you got to have the horses, and your guys are going to beat the other guys just based on sound football. I don't think there's so much like scheming to do things as much per se, right? So we're going to see a lot of inside zone, and that's what you see, or that's what I saw looking at what I've seen from them playing against South Carolina and Missouri, and it worked, right? But their defensive fronts are not Georgia.
Yeah, to quote Nathan over at the Battle Hymnal, Nathan Lawrence, he talked a lot about the ability for Todd Monken to recognize tendency and to train tendency and to put the defense into a conflicted state. So the different types of zone runs that we could potentially run, they all kind of look similar, but they're executed differently. And he spent a lot of time, kind of highlighting some of that work that Monken did, that I feel like that level of detail that Monken kind of has applied to this offense just wasn't there with Coley previously. So I think that we have a really good coach, and I think Kirby gave him as much credit as he really deserved in the way that he schemed our players into success. And we obviously have the talent gap here between the two squads, so having that in our arsenal to be able to move players around, to put the defensive ends, to put the linebackers into positions where they have to make decisions and potentially making the wrong decisions, is going to be important. Now, I will say that the linebackers for Tennessee are pretty good, but it is a Jeremy Pruitt coach defense, and I know we'll talk about Pruitt in a minute, but I just don't see them having a whole lot of success against our lines, based on what we've seen thus far.
Well, that's what it's going to come down to, really. I mean, that's what this game is going to come down to, the trenches. I mean, not to be cliche, but I think it's just the reality, right? I mean, again, Kirby Smart, Jeremy Pruitt, similar mindset, come from worked under Saban. You have a strong running game and you have great defense. I mean, and then you play action pass. Now that's definitely the Pruitt, what they're doing, right? Because with Jim Chaney, that's his offense, right? Successful run game, do the play action pass. Our offense, I think, has now evolved and does more. I don't know. I guess it's more multiple than that, I would say. We're, like you said, what Nathan had pointed out, which I watched that as well. The latest, the battle hymnal was excellent. Showing how against Auburn, Monken would do things and then come back to the same look and make a variation.
Yep.
Like even that jumbo package that I was drooling over, right, with Jalen Carter at fullback, right, like. We had the same formation twice, and we had those guys and Jordan Davis at tight end, right? Like we did that twice, but it was a different run concepts between the two plays, right? Like it wasn't the same play. Like it was the same look, but different play. So things like that, and that's where I feel like what Chaney doesn't do that so much. I don't know, like see the 2018 Florida game where we couldn't score a touchdown at like 8 tries or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He'll run all over you, just like that one series that you and I were both kind of shaking our heads at. That we got too cute on at one time where we decided to throw three passes in a row outside, and I fully expect Chaney to outthink himself at some point during this game, and we're all going to look at it on much like we do with 3rd and Grantham. We're all going to be like, "Ha ha! See, suckers!"
Right. Absolutely.
Told you so.
Yeah, I would. Well, I would definitely love to see that. I mean, looking at it, so Garantano, so that is one thing. Like last year when we played them, I know like there was the lights out hit from Stokes. It was on the different quarterback.
It was on Maurer.
Maurer, right?
Yeah.
Had Garantano, and I just not remembering. Had he been benched? Because he ended up coming back in. Because when Maurer got hurt, I feel like it ended up being Garantano, right?
Yeah, I thought that he got benched.
Yeah, that's what I think. Okay, and then I think he ended up kind of coming back in later in the season.
Yeah.
So okay, but yeah, so he's got good numbers. So he's 61% passing, 449 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, right? So again, but he hasn't seen a defense anywhere near Georgia's, I would say. So again, just like we talked about with Bo Nix last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he hadn't thrown a pick in a long time, right? He had that crazy long, like no interception streak going.
Yeah, led the NCAA in.
Right. And so we were able to get that again with obviously our great secondary play, but again, the pressure, right? I mean, the pressure was so key last week. And so that's what I want to see is what can Georgia dial up on defense to disrupt what, Jim Chaney's offense wants to do and make Garantano uncomfortable, right? And I have to imagine Adam Anderson's going to be part of that. I mean, the guy, I loved what I saw out of him last week, just so fast with the speed. And actually, one of the things I'll give a shout out to my dad. You can follow him at FripDog on Twitter. One of the things he mentioned from watching the game is, they've got Cade Mays at tackle. And I think he primarily played guard at Georgia. So he's playing right tackle. So they've moved him out to tackle. Is he quick enough right, to pedal back and to be able to stop our edge rushers. That is something I think to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, no, I think that's that we're going to obviously be attacking these guys left and right, and if, like I said, if we can shut them down in the run game, like you said, Chaney historically liked to pound the rock and set up the pass for later quarters or later downs. But if we can stop the run effectively, and keep them at bay, keep them in third and longs, second and longs, that kind of thing, it's going to force them to try to attack us through the air, which I believe is where Garantano is going to get exposed at some point, because while the secondary is kind of the weakest link that we have, it also has a lot of skill players that have shown an exceptional adeptness at covering top receivers on the opposing team and just taking the ball away from them. So if we don't get you with the pressure, they'll get you eventually, and maybe not be, there may be some pass interferences here and there. Someone may get burned, like Tyson Campbell got burned a couple of times, but he came back and played really well against Seth Williams just overall.
I think he made a lot of money on Saturday.
Yeah, he made a lot of NFL money on Saturday for sure, showing that he has the skills to cover a player that probably will also be playing on Sundays based on what I've seen thus far and everybody's talked about. Yep. It will be interesting seeing how we handle Pitts down the road, but that's for the Florida game.
Yeah, right, exactly. I also would say, I was pleased when Chris Smith came in last week, right after LeCount got out with the targeting. Smith did great. He did it like you didn't notice oh no, right? Oh no, he's back there. I don't know, it just felt natural with him in the game. So that was another good sign. Which again, hate to see LeCount out with the targeting penalty. We could debate whether it was or wasn't, but whatever it was called, just glad that it happened in the first half, so he doesn't have to sit or glad that it was in the first half of the Auburn game, so that he doesn't have to miss the first half of the Tennessee game, because we'll need him with their passing attack.
Yeah, exactly. So I got a question for you, since we're talking about the offense right now of Tennessee versus Georgia, and we'll switch it up in a minute. But
yep.
Chaney. Well, I've got a question from one of my coworkers, Alex Horvath. He was asking, what's the mentality you feel like, and I'm curious about what your thoughts are. I have my own impressions here, but what do you think about Chaney versus Kirby? Former employer. Chaney used to work for Kirby. So what are we feeling on that?
Now, if Kirby Smart were to answer this question, he would say, "Oh, we always had a great working relationship. He left on good terms. Happy for him, et cetera, et cetera." But you have to feel like when Chaney left that Georgia wasn't backing up the dump truck to keep him.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, so to me, there's something there. I think that I'm not saying that Kirby Smart told him to leave, anything like that, but I do think that Tennessee came in with an offer, and I would imagine Chaney brought that to Kirby in Georgia, and it wasn't matched, is the way it seems like it went down. And I mean, to me, that kind of says it all, honestly, right? I think because you can look at statistically, the offense was good, but again, there definitely was a drop from 17 to 18. Now, obviously, it was a bigger drop to 19, but that was with Coley. So I think we can say, that wasn't the best hire to replace Chaney, but I think there was a reason. So I don't think that there's so much bad blood or anything like that. But I would say that I don't know. I guess I just kind of felt I don't know, again, just the no matching of offer, et cetera, no really fight to try to keep him, kind of says it all there.
Yeah, no.
And I just kind of feel like he was adequate here. He was adequate. Nothing super great to me with Chaney.
So here, you want to know my perspective?
I do.
All right, so this is my thought. I believe that this is another one of those edge scenarios where he's going to use this as an edge for the defense, much like the Cade Mays. He'll pile on, he'll tag on the Cade Mays as he's trying to motivate his team. Um, I
Okay.
believe that he knows Cheney's weaknesses, which is kind of backs up what you're talking about. Like he knows the extent to which Cheney can go. He knows what he's worth. He knows how he operates. Kirby is a man of details, and I believe that he knows the details of Cheney, and I believe that he will use them to his advantage and either goat him into various play calls and situations where he knows that Cheney is going to go. Because that's just who Kirby is. And again, I will say that all of the hullabaloo with Cheney and his past with quarterbacks and things like that, which for all intents purposes, he had a really good run with Jake Fromm. He had a good run in the past. What was it, Drew Brees or something like that? But
Yep, it was.
and obviously he's having a good run with Garantano. So like seems like he's a really good quarterback coach because of all of the successes that he's had at that position. But as an offensive coordinator, it's not just the quarterback. You've got the surrounding ceremony of everything. And previously he was with Pittman, who helped recruit him an amazing line at both of their stops. And at Georgia, he was the benefactor of some of the all-world players that we've had historically. You've got Sonny Michel, you've got Nick Chubb, you've got Jake Fromm, you've got all the offensive linemen that are playing on Sundays, and we've got all this talent that was here. So I kind of feel like that he was the benefactor of having good kids around him. And if you're a mediocre or a competent coach,
Yes.
you can talent around some of that stuff. And I think that that's why, and we talked about this, Coley tried to out talent but couldn't back up the coaching.
Yeah. No. Yeah. No. That I totally agree with that. Yeah. And that's basically how I feel about Cheney. I think adequate is right, and they get like it's sound, right? His scheme is sound. Like he has good concepts, but again, I don't think he does that like punch counter punch type stuff that we've talked about, or that we heard Battle Hymnal talk about, right? That we've already seen Monken begin to do at Georgia. To me, that's the difference.
Yep.
It's great to out talent people, but I mean, why not add an extra advantage? I mean, I don't know. Like that doesn't have to be the only thing. Like it's okay to scheme for things.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you want to talk Georgia offense versus Tennessee defense a bit? Or did you have anything else on that matchup? Okay.
Let's do that. Although while we were on the topic of talking about Cheney, we can also kind of piggyback and caveat to this conversation and talk about Pruitt.
Yeah, true. Yep. Yeah, and I mean, because so again, same coaching tree, right? That Kirby came from. We know him at Georgia. I mean, honestly, like I'm not going to pretend like I didn't like him when he was at Georgia. Like I loved him. I thought he brought a lot of good energy. That was kind of the beginning of the injection of that type of mentality into the Georgia program. It was different than what we were used to with Rick, and we've got it. I would say even more so, now with Kirby coming on. What I've seen from the Tennessee defense, I guess I just think of. I would say that. So if we look at our opponents thus far, right? So we've played Arkansas and Auburn. Tennessee played South Carolina and Missouri. So I would say, like, if you're trying to match those up, right? Like I would say Arkansas is better than Missouri, I think, this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say that Auburn is probably better than South Carolina. Yet they've given up a lot more points against those two teams and their offenses than Georgia, has given up, and has been able to put up with Georgia on offense. I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about it, especially with what we saw on Saturday. I feel like our line, whatever changes were made, or I don't know, maybe it was talking to, maybe it was motivation, maybe it was knocking off the rust. and not even so much Russ, right? Like we've got a lot of new guys starting on the offensive line, but just the protection that we saw Bennett get. I mean, not to say that he wasn't ever flustered, but when he was able to get out of it for the most part, right? Like the time where he had the kind of free blitzer coming and he did his little pirouette, spun out and hit Jackson, right, for a first down on our first touchdown drive against Auburn. With that, and then the running lanes and the running game, I like the matchup, honestly. Our offense against their defense. I like the matchup.
Yeah. I mean, going to back to the Pruitt conversation, these guys worked together for 6 years at Alabama. I think they both know each other's strengths and weaknesses. I do think that, if I'm being honest, I feel like that the Alabama defense took a turn after Kirby left. Did you see the comments that they had, the banter at the beginning of September when Pruitt made a crack about Kirby Smart's golf game, and Kirby respond. So he says Pruitt basically said, talking about competitive advantage with SEC coaches, and I guess he said, every time I play golf with Kirby Smart, he's the only guy who always finds his ball in the woods, always. And Kirby Smart is not exactly known for being an active Twitterer, other than his Go Dogs tweets when the recruits come through.
Yes.
But his response was just flat out deadpan. He said, "For the record, I don't play golf with 25 plus handicap golfers."
So that response, so I'm with you. I could not believe it when I saw that.
Exactly.
And I'll actually say, when that happened, I was on a golfing trip with some buddies of mine. So we were in Myrtle Beach area on like a golfing weekend, and I saw that. So it hit home for me. I wasn't having the greatest weekend of golf personally, and so I had kind of a two-phase reaction to that. First, just laughing hysterically because I thought that was so amazing. But then second, realizing, oh man, I don't think Kirby would play golf with me.
Probably not.
I'm still trying to improve my game. I'm not the greatest golfer.
Golf is not my forte. But here's the thing that sticks out to me. Like I said, we talked to death on the fact that Kirby doesn't use Twitter all that much. But he responded to the quote there a couple of hours after it was posted. So
yeah,
to me, it just speaks that there's something personal about this, almost on the level of, because he was an assistant when Kirby was the defensive coordinator, and so there is a little bit of master and commander going on here. Like, which one, Nick Saban, and all of his success that he's had against his assistants, and frankly, Kirby's had a lot of success against Pruitt too. So I do expect that to continue, and I feel like that's an edge that he's exhibited publicly for everyone to see, because clearly he saw it and needed to respond to it. But for their defense versus our offense, obviously it's going to key in on turnovers. I talked about on the defensive side, if we can stop the run, if we can control the football and have the continued success that we've had on the offensive line, and Stetson Bennett can manage the game as well as he's managed thus far, I just don't see the game ending much differently than we've seen thus far. For everything that I've seen from Tennessee, from everything that I've seen from Georgia, this defense is going to eat their lunch, and I believe it's going to put Tennessee into a position where they're going to have to attack, and they don't want to attack. And conversely, on our offensive side, I believe that they will attack, and they will try to attack. And as long as we can make the right decisions, make the right reads, do what we've been doing on defense, then I believe we walk away with this game.
Man, getting a little sneak peek into the picks here. Sneak peek into the pick. Man. Yeah. Confidence.
I've wavered a little bit on the teaser score that I got for the competition there, the 7-6 competition.
Yes.
what's the score? What's the predicted score for a shirt? But
Right.
yeah, I've wavered a little bit on that. I almost backed off of it, but I'm going to stick with it. But we'll get to that. We'll get to that later.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I definitely feel like, I mean, again, I know I sound like a cliche, but it really does. It's going to come down to, I mean, the line play. And I do feel like if we can have running lanes like we had against Auburn, against Tennessee, and get that room, get a crease for our guys, right? So get a crease for Zamir White. I like our chances, right? Because if those guys can run, if they have to respect the run, it's just going to make our passing game even better. And with the receiver play has been, I mean, I've definitely been pleased with the receiver play, right? Like I don't feel like we're in the place last year where it was Pickens and no one else, right? And also early in the season, it was like Pickens hadn't really got going yet. It was almost like there was no one really, right? It just took so long for the passing game to gel last year, and we have not had that problem. I mean, Bennett has been able to spread the ball around. No one's putting up crazy stats, but it's pretty even. I mean, behind Jackson, right? I mean, Jackson is like yardage wise by far the leading receiver. So he's got 15 catches for 209 yards. Kyrus Jackson. Pickens has 6 catches for 73. I did not envision that at all through 2 games. So that's awesome. But then, the rest of the guys all behind there are all like, somewhere between like 25 to 40 yards. So, and we've got a bunch of them, right? So you got D-Rob, Fitzpatrick at tight end, Burton, Landers, right? So I like that. I feel like we talked about in the Auburn review, just like it seems like there's something there with Bennett and Jackson. They've got a good connection. And then but Pickens is the one catching the touchdowns, right? And he's making those spectacular plays still. I actually am. You know what? Actually, let's go to a listener question because I was about to basically answer one of the questions. So we did get some questions. This one comes in from UGA Hoops Mafia, which if you like Georgia basketball, go follow UGA Hoops Mafia. Great follow. With the Vols likely keying in on Jackson and Pickens, do you think Burton or another wideout will have a breakout game Saturday? What do you think about that? Do you have any ideas there?
So here's my thought. And I was actually going to talking points for offense. I was actually going to bring this up. At some point, the defenses are going to have to decide, are they going to double cover Kyrus or are they going to double cover double cover Pickens?
Yep.
So at some point, they're going to have to make a choice. And if they continue to allow and cover Pickens, which I believe that some of his production is related to the amount of coverage and attention that he's been seeing from a scheme standpoint, to take him out as an option, which, preseason, that's probably a smart play if you knew that Newman wasn't going to be there and you didn't really know what we had at quarterback. Taking out the best offensive weapon, since we didn't have any pronounced running game yet, from a rusher standpoint. Taking out the biggest weapon that we had last year is probably a smart move, but now it's looking like that it could potentially be a liability because the emergence of Kyrus Jackson. And then the other thing that we talked about in the past as well with this Monken offense is the reemergence of the tight end. So I do believe that Darnell Washington starts to get more involved and gets more targets. Obviously, Fitzpatrick has been targeted as well. So in my opinion, if they start keying in and covering Kyrus and covering Pickens, who do we go to next? In my opinion, I believe we've shown that it's going to be a tight end. And we've had the tight end open multiple times. And I believe that, Bennett just kind of missed the throws or, slightly off from a timing or whatever, but they've been there for big gains.
Okay. I like that. And I was actually going to go with specifically, so I like how you pivoted. I was actually going to pivot as well because the question focused on Burton or another wideout. I think,
gotcha.
But what I think is, I think Pickens is going to have a big day.
He's due.
But yeah, so I mean, that's what I feel like. who's going to be the breakout receiver. Pickens, like we've said, has had the 2 touchdowns, but hasn't had the crazy yardage. I am actually thinking this may be the Pickens breakout for the season. Is what I'm thinking.
That would be nice. I certainly wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, because I mean it's hard to say. Guys making circus catches all over the field and that he's having a breakout. But yeah, I mean from a stat standpoint, he's going to break one here soon.
Yep. Okay, you said you wanted to get into offensive talking points, and I jumped into listener questions. We can go back to your talking points and then we can hit the rest of the listener.
Oh
questions.
no. I think that it's gelling well. I was just thinking of the offensive talking points. Where are we going with the football? If James Cook obviously is out, that's going to impact the options that we have coming out of the backfield. So there's going to be some scheming going on. I'm actually really impressed with the kind of. It hasn't been something that stood out, necessarily on the game film or as a fan, but Zeus is coming on. Like he's starting to get looks, obviously getting gaps. In the Arkansas game, those yards were hard. In the Auburn game, those yards got a little easier, and he was busting big gains. So I'm actually really encouraged by the emergence of Zeus, and I just hope that continues from a running game standpoint.
Yeah, and I mean he's averaging 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean he is having a good season, and again you think too he was getting stuffed early against Arkansas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely bringing the average down. The way the line play was going there early in that game. But yeah, I mean there were definitely, if we can again get those lanes, I feel like he's a tough runner, right? And I think we already knew that, and then. Like we've talked about, like we've seen some shiftiness out of him that I didn't realize that he had, but I didn't really think that was like his forte. But I've loved seeing that come from him. And if Cook can't go, I have the utmost confidence in Kenny McIntosh to be that next up guy. So
and Kendall Milton has made a couple. At the end of the Auburn game, he was making a statement and that he needs more carries too, because it'll be a next man up scenario for sure. But it does change. It does change the offensive looks from time to time, because Cook is very, he's very shifty. He's good in the open field. Not that these other guys aren't, but that's kind of what he's known for.
Got it. Yep. Agreed.
Like I said, watching the tight end from an offensive standpoint, our tight ends versus their linebackers. Is going to be interesting to watch. I don't believe that they have an athlete anywhere near the level of Darnell Washington. So, like I said, I think that he's also shown that he needs to get some more looks too from how athletic he has been in the field. Like I said, I think that the key on offense is just going to be managing our turnovers and managing the field position and giving Stetson opportunities to put points on the board, and once we get past that 40-yard line that Dog Stats likes to talk about, like once you get past that 40, making sure that we're putting points on the board and not taking sacks and having to punt the ball away.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. And don't want to settle for field goals. Although I like what we've seen out of Podlesny. Although I do think we need to get. I don't think he has quite the consistency from range, I think, right, as Hot Rod. But I would like to get it to the point where it doesn't matter, right? Get the ball in the end zone.
Punch it in.
Yep.
The legend of Stetson Bennett should continue this week, though.
Yeah, how about this? Let me look at our recording. We have been taught we won't be this far into the podcast because we talked a little bit extra, but we're in minute 49.
Yep.
And we haven't had any sort of quarterback debate. This is a first for a My God a Podcast preview show.
which is welcome.
Yes.
Welcome, because
right, it's great. We don't have to do any prediction on who's the starting quarterback, anything like that. We are all in on the mailman. All right, you want to hit the rest of the... I do have some more user questions. You want to run through those?
Yeah, we can run through the questions.
All right. Got one from Tim Riley. Again, friend of the show. How many catches will a tight end have for the Dogs? Over, under?
I'm going to go over 3.
Okay, you set it at 3. Let's set it at. You want to set it at 2, and let's set it at a half. I don't like pushes. You want to set it at 2.5 or 3.5?
I'll do 3.5.
You're gonna take the over of 3.5.
I'll take the over.
Okay, I'm gonna go under just to be different.
Just to be different, because you don't think that we can get the ball to Fitz or Washington?
Nope, just so that one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong. That's the only reason I'm doing that.
All right.
Otherwise, I would take over because I actually agree with you. Okay. Tim had another one, and I like this one. How in the world will the Dogs defense stop the run behind that vaunted 7-man offensive line from Tennessee?
Oh, jeez.
I read it the way I sensed that he typed it.
I just don't see it. I don't see how they're able to put yards on the board against this defense.
Yeah,
from a running standpoint.
Yeah, I just see I see Jordan Davis just plugging up, taking on men and taking up those linemen to let our linebackers do their thing. I don't know. I mean, to me, I think that's the actual answer of how that happens.
Yeah.
All right, got one. I think this is the last one. So Brett Belding at B Belding on Twitter. Can we convince Pruitt to bring back Butch's trash can? I'll hang up and listen. So A, love the question. B, sports talk radio jokes are always welcome here. So always love the lingo.
Can we talk about how terrible that trash can was, though, and how awesome it was that they used a trash can as their turnover thing?
So I think the real reason why I do think the answer is no, we're not going to be able to convince Pruitt to do this. But the reason is because that trash can is occupied with the chair that cut off Cade Mays' dad's finger.
Oh, there it is. I hope that we, if game day were in Athens this weekend, I'd love to see the game day posters that we would put together for something like this. If you've got a game day poster, post it, please. For this.
Yeah, we definitely had. This week would have been better than last week for sign potential. Granted, no one's there, so I guess that doesn't matter. But that is definitely the case.
That's a sad tragedy of the whole deal.
It is. All right, those were the listener questions that I had. I don't know. Do you have anything else you wanted to hit on, or you want to get into this
before we get into our predictions? So they've got a couple of things that maybe some of the listeners aren't aware of. So
okay.
We're up against the biggest winning streak in the SEC in college football. They got eight consecutive games winning. So it's just a matter of, are we going to be able to snap that streak? Yep. On the other side of that coin, they've got a streak that's up for grabs of 33 consecutive losses to top 10 teams.
Wow.
And that leads the country. So, are we going to continue to make that magic number 34 for Herschel Walker on his 40th birthday for this play call? And I believe the answer is yes.
Oh man! So so I didn't know that second one. Until you told me that today. The other one I was aware of and have heard about it like nonstop online. So would definitely love to put an end to that one.
The 8 consecutive.
Yeah. So that's just what you hear from the Tennessee. So you got like a Clay Travis, right? Guy like Tennessee fan media type. Definitely heard him talking about, that's all he wants to talk about. I just heard a lot of people mentioning it, and Tennessee, are they back? Longest winning streak, and that's just I don't know. That's one of the big talking points out there. All right, let's see. First game, you went first on the pick.
I did. You got to go first this time.
I went first last week. We want to alternate, or do you want to just let me? Do you want me to just keep going first?
I thought I went first. All right.
Well, you went first. You went first, Arkansas. I went because Arkansas game. Remember, you went first, and then you kept changing your score.
Yes,
I did. Yeah. So for Auburn, I went first, and then you went.
Okay.
But I do have some kind of talking points that I want to get into with my score, so I'm not going to just straight up throw the score. I do have one other thing that keeps just going through my head about this, but
go.
You want me to go?
Go.
All right, let me go. Okay.
Lay it out.
So, okay. As I've looked at this week, and as we've talked about this via our texts, and then as we've been talking today, I can't find like a rational, like statistical reason why this should be a game, right? Like why I should be worried about them, right? And like actually pick them. Which, spoiler alert, I'm not going to pick Tennessee. Like I don't know, I'm going to pick Georgia. So like I'm taking Georgia, but I guess I just want to be clear. Like I mean, it's not like this is a game that we can't lose, right? I mean, any given Saturday, all that kind of fun stuff, right? I mean, you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds on the football field with an oblong ball, and things can happen. And I guess it's just kind of one of those get your mind, like, got to make sure that you get your mind right games, because we've been in situations before where we were superior to Tennessee and they still beat us. And like the game that keeps like creeping into my head is 2004. So in 2004, the week before the Tennessee game, Georgia had this like explosion and rocked LSU when Saban was still at LSU. Saban was blitzing us, and David Green just was like throwing dimes to Fred Gibson and Reggie Brown, right? And we crushed LSU, and we were flying high, and we're undefeated. And this is like, this is it. This is going to be the season. And then the next week, an overmatched Tennessee team comes into Sanford Stadium and beat us. And I'm still convinced that it was a head in the clouds. We were overconfident, and that's why we lost that game. So that to me, like that is, I don't know, that's Tennessee's chance, right? Is that if Georgia isn't mentally prepared, that's what can be that equalizer for Tennessee. Because if I look at the numbers, I look at what each team has done against each other's opponent. Look at the recruiting, look at the depth, right? And look at the schemes. I feel like Georgia should win. But I guess I don't know. That's just my kind of thing. I want to make sure, like if you're listening and you're going to go to the game, still got to be loud, just like everyone was for Auburn. I guess that's another thing. Like that we asked, would there be a home field advantage, in college football this year? I feel like there was in Athens last weekend. Auburn came out with like multiple false starts right at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So kudos to the fans that were in the stands and the noise that they made. I think that was awesome. So we needed everyone to bring that energy again this week. If I have to like pick a score and like try to get as close to what I think it would be, I want to make sure I'm not going to, because I've already seen yours. Hopefully I'm not copying it.
I don't think so.
I do feel like I feel like Georgia's going to get into the 30s on points this week. Okay. So I'm going to go Georgia. I'm going to go 33. I was going to say 33-18. That was what was in my head.
Okay.
I'm going to go with that. But I don't. That's my prediction, or that's my score prediction. I could see it being tighter, though. I mean, I don't know. Crazy things happen, and they're 18 to 22-year-old kids playing. I don't know. Let's come back to that.
So you had 33-16. Is that what it was?
18.
18. Okay.
Yeah.
So that puts it at 15. So you're just outside the spread right now.
What is the spread? 14?
Well, now it's at 12.5, which is, when we get to my score, as of today, it was at 12.5. So it's come down. So yeah. I'm wondering what Vegas knows that you and I don't.
Well, that's the thing there, though. Like I'm just I already said it, so I'm gonna leave it there. But I do feel like we do tend to be a bit of a win but not cover. And I hadn't looked at it. I know it opened at 14, right? So it came down 1.5. It came down 1.5 points.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's still. I mean, that's not a ton. That's not a whole lot of movement. Like I know what I'm talking about. I don't gamble.
No, it came down 2.5.
Oh, see, now I'm rethinking. All right, I already said it though. I'm going to stick with it. But not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, what do you got?
So my prediction was 38-16. I see a lot of field goals in Tennessee's future, and I just think that we just walk away with this, which puts me at 22 over. But I don't know. I just think that there's no way that they're going to be able to move the ball on us. They will definitely get yards through the air, but I just feel like that they're going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to opportunities with this defense coming into things.
Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, we got our scores. We got our
scores,
listeners.
but we also have some of the story times. So we mentioned some of the history in this. What you mentioned the other day, I didn't even realize it, but this is the 20-year anniversary of the goalpost coming down in Athens.
Yep. And so actually, I don't want to get too much into that right this second. We'll talk about it in a minute, but this is now as good a time to talk about that. There is going to be an extra special episode coming out this week, separate from this one, where we will, John and I will talk about it, and then I've got some other special guests lined up to recount their memory of that day 20 years ago, the only time the goalpost ever came down in Sanford Stadium when Georgia beat Tennessee in the year 2000. In the year 2000. so that we will have that coming up as well.
Okay.
And you know what? One thing I did, we talked about this first week and then didn't last week. What are game day plans? I know like neither of us are going to the game, but you got anything going on Saturday?
We will be celebrating the birthday of one of our good friends, the Hex, Caroline Hecht. She's got a birthday actually today she had a birthday, and so we're going to be celebrating with them and our friend Chris at a steak shop in Marietta.
Excellent. I have soccer game again.
I think we'll be clear by the time we have to go out though. So I'll probably be here at the house. Trying to watch it outside if I can, but yeah.
Yeah, we've got the soccer game running again on Saturday, so and we're like on the other side of Charlotte actually, so I'll be probably watching on my phone on YouTube TV on the way home, and then pick up on my TV when I get home.
Yeah, now that you say that, my son might have 3 games on Saturday, so I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, they haven't sent the rosters out yet. I need to get messages, coach, about it.
These kids and their events.
Yeah.
Good times. All right, John. Well, we got everything I had for this game, unless you had anything else.
Nope, that's it. I think we'll be celebrating on Sunday.
All right. Yep. So we'll be back to review the game. I'll talk to you on. Well, we'll talk all day on Saturday, obviously, but we'll talk about it on Sunday as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.